Welcome, everyone, to a special installment of the Force Diet Podcast. This episode is to help celebrate Star Wars Podcast Day. What is Star Wars Podcast Day, you might ask? Well, the very first Star Wars podcast, Jedi Talk, premiered on February 7th, 1999. And on this 24th anniversary, there are more than 100 other shows celebrating with us. A hearty cheers to those trailblazers, laying the groundwork for all of us to follow. The question we aim to answer today: who is our favorite and least favorite character from the Disney era of Star Wars? So sit back and relax. This is where the fun begins.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
Why is the Force connecting us?
I am a Jedi. Always two there are.
We're a dyad in the Force.
Welcome to another episode of the Force Diet Podcast. This is episode 44. I'm your host, Obi Sean, and joining me for this special occasion is my best bud, Jedi John. How you doing, friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. Excited to be here for Star Wars Podcast Day. It's something that's been on our calendar now for a little while, and we've been looking forward to this episode. And I love the topic we decided on. We landed on, our least favorite and favorite characters from the Disney era of Star Wars. And I think, we'll have some stuff to talk about today that's a little different from, we've been on the Bad Batch now for a few weeks, and so it'll give us a nice change of pace right in the middle of the season. So pretty excited.
Yeah, and we were throwing around the idea of how do we want to do this? Do we want to do, good cop, bad cop? Do we want to start with the bad news first and good news first? And I think we decided we're going to start with our least favorites, right?
Bad news bears. Bad news bears coming through.
So
you're throwing it right to me, right?
I am going to you first.
I don't know if I
yes.
like this. I guess we'll give the honorable mentions first for my least favorite renditions of characters currently in Star Wars.
Before you do this, so just to give a background on kind of what the ground rules we laid for this discussion, right? It was certainly any character that has been created sort of outright during the Disney era of Star Wars or expanded upon. So you could technically pick Ahsoka from season 7 if you wanted as your favorite character, or Rebels, of course. You could talk Obi-Wan because of the Kenobi series, etc. So you can have some prequel or OT characters as long as they were built upon during the last 8 years.
Yeah, at any point if they were touched on by Disney, we can choose them. So I guess we'll hit honorable mentions first for my least favorite characters. Man, it's going to surprise a few people because, it's not... Rose Tico did not make my list anywhere. I know people think that I'm probably going to choose Rose because, a lot of people have her on their list for worst characters, but I went a different route with it. So honorable mention number 1 for me is Boba. The reason why he's only an honorable mention and not my least favorite is they're still working them. So, and he had some good moments, so I was really happy with the first initial meeting of him, and then I was unhappy afterwards. So there was still like a 50-50 cut there. And the screen time was about the same, so it worked. It worked out. So he was definitely one of my letdowns. And then my other honorable mention was, unfortunately, it goes to one of the sequel. My honorable mention and my least favorite are both sequel trilogy characters. One of them being Palpatine. As an honorable mention, I was not happy bringing him back. I was excited to see him come back. I was at that celebration and heard when Ian McDiarmid came out and saw the first trailer. I was pumped for it. I didn't like the way it happened in the movie exactly, but honorable mention, not my least favorite. My least favorite Star Wars character from Disney was actually the way they did Finn.
You did not take mine.
I knew it. I knew it.
Bless it. Okay.
I told you we should have told each other before to make sure.
It's fine.
Go on.
Go on.
Do you want to go over your
I hate
honorable
you so
mentions
much.
real quick?
I hate you so much
Do you
right
want to
now.
do your honorable mentions? You want to give the honorable mentions?
God bless it. I hate you
Did you
so
really
much.
not think I was gonna? Come on.
I didn't actually.
You thought I was gonna go Boba. You thought I was gonna go Boba because
I
I complained about his.
I thought you were. I thought you might do that, or I thought you could have maybe gone with somebody from like Kenobi, but no.
Oh no.
All right, so
Yeah.
you got Finn. So cool.
Finn. We get to talk about Finn a lot, evidently. That's
No,
what
no,
I'm
no.
hearing.
I'll have a different one then. I'll do my honorable mentions, or I'll have
All
my
right, all
honorable
right.
mention be my least favorite. That's fine. Go
All right,
on.
all right.
Tell me why Finn's your least favorite.
They completely trashed his character in every sense of the term. Like, we should have had a stormtrooper turned Jedi. 1000%. He was on the original poster for Force Awakens. Come back, and he was absolutely worthless in The Last Jedi. And he could have died at the end of The Last Jedi and redeemed his arc, so to speak, of getting back at the First Order, ruining their chances to take out the Resistance in that battle. And instead, they pull the Luke card for him to be distracted, but also the Rose Tico card for him to be saved by a speeder that should have blown them both up and killed them both on impact. So much was wrong with that character arc. I mean, nuclear warhead hitting it, basically. Like, they completely shattered it. And then we catch up to him in Rise of Skywalker, and, well, it didn't get much better for him. We see him right away in the first few scenes. There's obviously some infighting with the three main characters that we have dealt with. And then, yeah, it's just not. They didn't do enough with him, and then they tried to do stuff with him, and then it was still more unbelievable in the Rise of Skywalker of the things they did with him. And we didn't get answers that we may have gotten in the books, but guess what? It wasn't in the movie. And the fact that some of that stuff wasn't in the movie and wasn't explored more and won't ever be explored again because John Boyega has Disney's not just ruined Finn, but ruined him from wanting to be a part of that. It sucks, and it makes me really angry on a regular basis when I think about what they did to his character. And I go back to just blaming the director and writer swaps between movies. I mean, it killed the major arcs for a lot of characters, but I think it affected him the most.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I actually don't know that the directors had a lot of say in it, and the reason why is because I think they did it because of they did it because of China.
China.
They did it because
they wanted
of China.
that China money. They wanted China money,
and China would not tolerate an African American in that kind of role, in that kind of starring lead role. Like, I mean, he would have been a co-lead, right? Like,
you're like Mace Windu, okay, he's cool, and Samuel L. Jackson, he's cool, but side character, very much a side character. He needs 10 minutes or less of screen time. Like,
I mean, you see the Force Awakens poster from the U.S. or from like domestic or even Europe, and then you look at the Chinese poster, and he's like it's like a Where's Waldo, except it's Where's Finn, and
I found him. I found Finn.
That was the exact reason that I was having him. It wasn't because I didn't like him as a character. It's because they just, it wasn't even character assassination. They didn't even allow his character to
they didn't try
get to the point to be assassinated. But the idea that because we know the First Order conscripted children into their ranks young, right? And the prevailing theory, which is
another faction that we know and love.
Yeah, exactly. And the prevailing theory is that, which it's not so much a theory anymore, I think, is because it's confirmed in the books, is he's Force sensitive, right? And the idea that what if his parents, because I don't know if we ever learn about his parents, but if they knew what he was and they basically put him into the First Order to try and protect him.
Save him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing with Canto Bight and the fact that the kids, the young force sensitive kids, and his, so he could have easily tied into like that relationship, right? They could have had him be the older version of what they were, right? And we could have gotten more, right? And I feel like they kind of wanted to do that with Canto Bite, but then they didn't do anything with it.
They still shied away. Still shied away from it.
And it was all because of money. And it's really a shame because there were a lot of things to not like about the sequel trilogy, or be disappointed with.
Finn legitimately could have been the best character that was in all three movies.
Without a doubt.
I mean, I understand where Rey was coming from, and I understand I do enjoy Kylo's arc. Like Kylo's arc made perfect sense. It was copy and paste from the OT. It's not hard, guys. It's not hard that, yeah, we got an original trilogy arc for some of the characters. I get it. And you can be upset with that too because, oh, it's not new. But at the same time, like, it made sense for Kylo. There was something traumatic that happened. He went to the dark side. He slowly was he got worse in the middle movie, and then he was making his way back in the third movie. Cool. Like, expected, yes. The way it happened, still cool. I enjoyed his character arc. Finn could have had the best character arc in the entire sequel trilogy, and they failed them miserably. Like, and I will say that forever. Like, he was a wasted character. And it upsets me. It upsets me greatly because we could have had a Stormtrooper turned Jedi, and it could have been badass.
Well, and I've seen some fanfics, or it may not even be fanfics, just like artwork of him leading a Stormtrooper rebellion, like on Exegol, right? Like, and rallying those who have been conscripted just like he was to fight back.
And imagine if he would be on that, even if, okay, let's say we still had the horse parade on the Star Destroyer, right? But if he was out there with a lightsaber, like, really, like, if you want to go back to like the roots of Star Wars and go into watching all those samurai warrior movies, like that, like samurai riding a horse, going into battle with all of his, I mean, his peers around him, you know, like, that's a perfect Star Wars replication of what they want to do with Star Wars. Like, on a regular basis, that's what George based so many decisions off of, or those old movies where that's what they based it on. Like, that was the inspiration for it. So him riding into battle with a lightsaber out, like, blocking shots or whatever else. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that scene, watching him ride into battle with a lightsaber on a horse, which is so corny as hell, but I still would have loved to see it, and it would have made it more believable about his situation.
Yeah, and it's a classic. I mean, the cavalry, you know, the idea of that last scene was the cavalry showing up, right? Everybody showing up to fight, and he literally could have been the lead cavalry on horseback, and so
he's the charge.
Exactly. It's the charge of the light brigade, the light side brigade, you know, because he's a Jedi, and I made a joke. Yeah,
I didn't get it. Can you explain it? Just maybe draw it for me one day.
Extrapolate on it. Yeah, I agree. You stole my.
I agree. You stole my idea. No, you told me to go first. I told you there was a possibility we did it.
I can't believe that. Like, maybe he's the obvious one, but I thought you were going to be surprised by my choice, which I guess you would have been surprised if I'd picked Finn, but maybe not.
I would have been surprised, but also angry that you chose
that I stole yours.
But then again, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we're on the same podcast together. We think a lot alike about stuff, so I mean, this all makes sense. And I'm sure at some point during our late night Star Wars chats, we've talked about how poor Finn was written. So I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
At least our favorites aren't the same.
So, any more that you would like to share about your disappointment with Finn?
I think I covered him in I think I covered Finn in excess at this point. We're good. My grievances have been aired.
Okay, so I will go, I guess, now.
Take it away.
Now that I've lost my Mojo.
You're welcome.
So we'll do honorable mentions first. So I had, well, the one that will now become my least favorite because they were kind of close for similar reasons. Not to the same extent because Finn got a whole trilogy to be crapped on by, you know, the writers and the necessary need for money from, you know, with Disney. But one of the things I was disappointed with was the Grand Inquisitor, the use of the Grand Inquisitor in Kenobi, and because we get him from Rebels, right? And we get him in live action, and we get virtually nothing with him. He's almost just there. Honestly, I don't know why he's there, other than to poke Reva, but it was one of those where they didn't need to bring him specifically back because we already got him in Rebels, and so one, we knew nothing could happen with him, and two, we get a lot more kind of from him in Rebels.
I'm sorry. I know it's probably my fault with video quality and everything, but like, who was it? I'm sorry.
The Grand Inquisitor.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I just didn't hear it. Sorry.
Oh.
I was piecing it together through context clues, and I'm like, he could still be talking about multiple people, so I don't know where he's gonna go. So sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Turns into a
definitely
game.
My connection. You froze out. You're like, it's gonna be Frozen. So
let it go.
My apologies.
Just let it go.
I was
man.
really trying to. I was trying to context clue it together, and I just couldn't do it. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
Grand Inquisitor.
That's the beauty of remote recording is you never know what you're going to get.
Yes.
That's my reverent Forrest Gump quote for the night. So yeah, the Grand Inquisitor, and the fact that they brought him back for nothing really, other than to, I guess, further Reva's story in that the hatred of her stabbing him and then backfiring on her, you know, later.
Yeah, do you think there's obviously more to his story, and like you said, like we already know, like ultimately, like he can't be gone. Like it's not a thing. Do you think they did that just as a, you know, not just to further her story, but also give us context as to what was happening with the Inquisitors at the time? Because after he died, we got more of the other Inquisitors also. I mean, we've got Jedi Fallen Order, so we already know some of the Inquisitors. We know who kind of doesn't make it because you end up killing them. So, like, it's just, do you think they did it to give more spotlight to the other Inquisitors, not just to make Reva the you know, Grand Inquisitor for 2 episodes?
Well, I think what would have been better, in my opinion, for furthering her character would have been to have the Grand Inquisitor or the one that she strikes actually die and, you know, be actually a path in her rage and her anger. And because using the Grand Inquisitor as that person, again, we knew that he had to survive because of Rebels. And so it takes it away. Like you don't get that impact. Like it's impactful for her, but as a viewer, you lose that. And so it would have been better to have the GI be. I mean, we had the fifth brother and the sixth sister in the series, or was it the? Because in the Rebels it's the ninth.
Yes.
It's the ninth brother and. Or not the ninth brother. It's the seventh sister and the fifth brother. So like you could have used her, or just another Inquisitor who happened to be in that role.
Yeah, you could have had a different Grand Inquisitor.
Right. And
Reva kills him.
And have him or her be actually killed.
Like the Grand Inquisitor could have been another Inquisitor at the time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That was also arguing with her. Like he could have just easily been like the fifth brother in this case. You know, like we're both vying for the same position, and it could have been more of an internal struggle and the Inquisitors to who was going to be the next Grand Inquisitor.
Right.
I mean.
So I feel like it was just a waste.
Think about him, but yeah,
it was just a waste. Choice, it was just a waste to bring him back. So again, not least favorite in that I didn't care for him at all. I liked having him in the series, but I felt like it was a wasted use of him in live action. So my least favorite will actually be one of your honorable mentions since you stole Finn, because I had Boba as my other honorable mention. And again, it's probably for similar reasons, not again because I hated the character, but I didn't care for, unless we get a season 2 somewhere magically, I didn't understand why they went the way they did with his character. And we get the rise out of the Sarlacc, which is cool, and his time with the Tuskens, cool. But what is Boba? Boba was, for a period of 10 years, 15 years, the most feared bounty hunter in the entire galaxy. And then he goes and becomes a crime lord. And again, it's not so much a hate for the character. It's that the most exciting portions of his show he wasn't even in, right? Which we've talked about at great length, and I'm not going to touch that right now because I'm going to focus on him as the character. But having him versus Cad, which was excellent. Cad even says it in the thing about him going soft, and it was almost a direct commentary on where the character was in the series, and
from the fans,
kind of. And what I don't understand is, and we've talked about it before, how amazing he was on Tython, right, when he just obliterates the stormtroopers, and then the first battle, granted he's coming back, he's trying to get healthy from being in the Sarlacc, right? So he gets overpowered by a bunch of foot soldiers. I feel like they just neutered his character. Like they neutered him. And the badassery, whatever, that all of the fans were hoping for from that series, like evaporated, short of what happens in that last episode. But even then, he's not even in control of his own beast, and he's not even in control of his own Rancor. He is to an extent, but then, we talked about it in the Festivus episode, Grogu has to be the one to calm the beast. And
listen, Danny Trejo should have trained Boba better. That's really comes down to.
So for what Boba was, which, I mean, we don't get a lot of him in the movies, right? Up to this point. But we do get a lot in the books. We get a lot in the comics, and again, just reading stuff from the War of the Bounty Hunters, for example, I realize that is pre Return of the Jedi. I get that.
Yeah, but still, everybody knows the guy. Everybody knows this guy, and granted, like you're still in a small portion of the galaxy that everybody knows him, but the name travels. Bounty hunters, their names travel. Like everybody knew who Mando was. Everybody knew Mando. The entire planet knew who Mando was, and he didn't even do anything that crazy.
Well, and you can't honestly tell me that there is a pocket of the universe that doesn't know who Boba Fett is, or Fett in general, whether it's Jango or Boba. I mean, the two of them together were two of the top 3, top 5 most cunning, feared bounty hunters in the era that we know and we understand. Cad's probably up there in that top few, and then others that I'm not familiar with from say comics or books or what have you. So yeah, Boba's got to be, because again, you took Finn, but for, again, similar reasons, that what they did with his character, and I don't understand why they did this, because I feel like they had time. I mean, it was his show. It's not like the sequel trilogy was always going to be about Rey and her journey, right? But Finn would have been a perfect complement to that. This was his show, so it's like there's really no excuse to have him play a bit part, which to a great extent he did. Fennec was out there kicking ass. Cad was kicking ass. Mando doing his thing.
Doing Mando stuff.
And
Grogu.
I mean, heck, even Grogu's, throwing stuff during his training with Luke. And the most intense thing we get with Boba is, well, one, him getting his beat senseless by Chrysanthemum.
Oh, hey, what else? What's the city? The Los Pelgo. What was it? The civilians that came in
Freetown.
to fight for him.
Freetown.
Freetown at
Yeah.
that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't wear my
Freetown.
I didn't wear my Freetown shirt tonight. I got my Forced Diet shirt on tonight.
I mean, even those Freetown, like with the beat up blasters, like they were making their shots all day long.
Even the mod squad, with their spin moves and all, just sniping people. So it's like the most, again, I go back to it, the most feared, cunning bounty hunter on the planet up until the point that he ended up in the Sarlacc's belly is reduced to nothing. He's reduced to, like I said, a crime lord who promptly gets betrayed by everyone and needs a lot of help to get bailed out, and it's just really disappointing that that's the Boba show that we got. And I hope that there's a season 2 to redeem it, but I honestly don't know where that season 2 would go. Like, he'd still be in his role, so he would expand, and would he take on the Hutts? Probably not. So is he going to take on the Pikes? I know they already, Fennec took out one of their leaders, but the Pikes are by no means gone. Do we get Crimson Dawn? Do we, what, like, I don't know where it goes. I don't know where it goes.
We were both hoping for the criminal underworld. We were both hoping for in that show, and we were on the right pace to get it, and then we only got the Pikes only on Tatooine, and we quickly disposed of them when we felt like it. So I was hoping to get more of a global feel, a galaxy-wide feel for the underworld, for the criminal underworld, so to speak. But yeah, we only got to see one faction, and when we decided it was over, it was over.
Yeah, you get the scene where he takes out the bikers in the Slave One, and that was cool.
And the train too.
Right,
and the train scene was cool.
Like a bantha.
Like a bantha.
But even in that scene, it's the Tusken warrior. It's the Tusken master, fighter that
they
does a lot of.
They specifically showed them. They showed them for a reason. Like they wanted to redeem the Tuskens from their previous notion about them.
Which I did not mind at all. I didn't mind that one bit.
No.
But I think it did a lot for his character to kind of make him more like community centric, like family centric, right? Because he's been on his own the whole time, which I get that for character development. But there has to be the Boba that you expect, and I just feel like it didn't hit. And so that's probably the most disappointed character, the character I'm most disappointed in because of what was expected or anticipated for their appearance.
Alrighty.
So yeah. So now
are we ready to move to the good?
Yes, let's pivot to the good. So I will throw it to you again.
Go good.
What's that?
No, you're gonna throw it to me again?
Well,
you're gonna come to me again first?
Nobody wants to listen to me talk for like 20 minutes straight. So
everybody wants that, Sean. Everyone wants.
Ain't nobody here for that. They like the back and forth.
You know what? Okay, so I'll start it. So we'll see where I hope I take one of your characters again. We'll see what happens though. I told you they were animated, but I'm gonna flip flop back to live action real quick. I'm kidding. Honorable mention number 1. I'm gonna go Dooku. I loved what they did with him in Tales of the Jedi, expanding his role. I loved him. Well, we didn't really see him in Clone Wars season 7, but we know he was we know he was in that timeline still when it started lining up with episode 3, and I love what the connection for him, and I get to see Qui-Gon interact with him, get to see obviously the battle with Yaddle and his ultimate turn to the dark side finally. And then we did catch up with him in postmortem in the Bad Batch at this point. So
with
they were after
Sereno.
his stuff, yeah,
on Sereno.
So we heard more. We heard more about Dooku on Sereno, which is Dooku's last name, by the way. Fun fact: the planet was named after the rulers, so it was Dooku Serrano, but he went by Count Dooku. And he's one of my favorite characters all time anyway. So other honorable mention for Disney. They've done a fantastic job with Vader. I can't take it away from them. Can't take it away from them. So honorable mention there.
Totally
my
agree.
Favorite character that they've had though, Darth Maul. I absolutely love what they did with him in season 7 of the Clone Wars. His interaction with Ahsoka, fantastic. At one point, he figured it out. He figured out the whole plan for Palpatine, and said, I don't want to let him do this. I need somebody to help me overthrow him because he's too powerful. And he asked Ahsoka for help. Like, it was so good for that season and those couple episodes that he was fighting with her, or just and then she freed him for distraction. But watching him mow down some clones was also just chef's kiss. Just so good. But outside of that, Rebels, great storyline for Maul. Tries to get Ezra Bridger to turn to him. Has a battle with Ahsoka. Also, he has his own plans, obviously, during that story arc. But just seeing him build from that, on top of what we saw in Clone Wars already, and then in Rebels we get his finale as far as the demise goes. Just fantastic. They just did such a great job with his storyline, and then on top of that, we did get him in Solo briefly. He's live action for a minute, in hologram form. But I was excited, and I was hoping we would get more of him in Solo 2 or something else down the road. So I'm still waiting for that, obviously, but it could still happen. But that's definitely my favorite character development they've had for Disney so far.
I'm still hoping that he shows up at some point in the Bad Batch as a member of Crimson Dawn, but that would require us to go back towards the syndicate thing, and I think we're getting away from that. I would agree, and we talked about it before. I've done myself a disservice by not being completely up to date on Rebels, but I do know what happens during the Twin Sons episode, and then it's referenced actually.
I didn't want to spoil it. I didn't want to spoil it for you, but yeah.
Well, it's referenced in the Kenobi comics as well, because he talks about recounting the fear that Maul had during his last moments, and his whole arc from the Clone Wars, like the beginning, well, I guess from the Phantom Menace to the Clone Wars and everything, it was fantastic.
Yeah, the animation definitely flushed it out and just made it so much better. And the fact that even under Disney, so to speak, they still expanded on him in season 7 and, brought him in for Rebels. Like, just a great storyline. Just, yeah.
Yeah, so great. You did not take my favorite, so I appreciate that.
I'm glad.
Appreciate
Good job.
you. We did have a similar honorable mention, because I was going to say Vader for my honorable mention, because between Rogue One and season 7 of the Clone Wars and
Kenobi.
Thank you, Kenobi. They have done, to this point, knock on wood, no wrong with him.
Season 7 Anakin was so flipping good. And then him turning to Vader and visiting the planet where Ahsoka would have been.
And then Rebels.
Goosebumps.
And Rebels too.
And Rebels also. And then on top of that, like, you get him in the hallway scene for Rogue One. First time we've seen him live action since the 80s, really. So, I mean, obviously we saw him in episode 3, but no.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't really see him. We didn't see him in action.
I mean, you see Lord Vader, right? That's the incarnation you see in Revenge of the Sith.
Right. So, but we get to see him in the hallway scene for Rogue One at the very end. Very cool. Everyone walked out of the theater talking about that, obviously, and then yeah, in Kenobi you see some force powers used that we haven't seen before, and also just domination from Darth Vader.
Oh
So,
yeah. Well, and speaking of Kenobi, my other honorable mention, actually I have two from the show. One is Kenobi himself. I could not have a favorite and not have Obi-Wan be on there.
I was waiting for him to roll out. I just didn't know when he was going to come out.
So
Because I mean, they did him okay. They did him pretty well in the show. So
yeah, and his character arc from broken man to renewed faith, renewed strength. I mean, it was really well done. The interactions between him and Leia were great. The end fight scene, albeit a little dark, like visually to see. The end scene between him and Anakin, and recognizing that his friend is truly dead. I mean, so much emotion in that scene, and they both did it so, like, both him and Hayden did it so well that, yeah, it was great. But for me, my favorite, and this is probably cheating, but it's a combination of three, and it's the main characters from Andor. But if I have to be forced to pick one, I'm going to pick Cassian. But I would like to pick Cass, Mothma, and Luthen as my favorites. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that Andor is my favorite show. It's my favorite anything right now that Disney has made. And a lot of it has to do with the characters. And so, again, if I'm forced to pick one, I'll pick Cassian just because he has more of a backstory from Rogue One than the other two. But
so outside of the backstory though, because I mean it's a big deal to have a backstory, right? But like, if I was gonna pick a favorite character from that show, I would probably pick Luthen. So why Cass over Luthen? Like, we get that epic monologue from Luthen.
well, it's like I said, it's kind of all three of them because Cassian is the driver, like he's the hub. We talked about it before. He's like the middle hub, and everybody spokes out. So
He's like the mutual friend, big group.
right. But with Mothma and Luthen specifically, those two, again, not only do you get some more exposition with Mothma, but the thing I loved most about it was the sense of realism, the sense of buy-in and sacrifice that, and it's the thing I loved about Andor, that the ordinary people had to do to fight back. And I know we're going to get more, so this is kind of maybe putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but Luthen's monologue, right, and just everything that he does throughout season one it has a purpose. Now, we don't necessarily know what that is, right, because he's quite secretive about things, but every pawn that he moves in his game of chess has a purpose. It has a reason, and it has meaning, and he's clearly flawed as a character just because he knows that the decisions he's making is directly resulting in people dying. But in a way, that's how a general runs. A general doesn't intentionally put his people in positions to get them hurt, but they know that when they're trying to execute a battle strategy, that casualties are going to happen, but they wrestle with those decisions on more than one level. And you see that in Luthen's character throughout season one. But it becomes certainly more apparent towards the end. Same thing with Mothma. The sacrifice that she has to make to keep up appearances, but the fact that her own family life is shattered more or less, and her daughter doesn't seem to respect her for what she does. Her husband is just kind of oblivious to what she's having to go through, and she's almost fighting for this family that she doesn't even know as far as the rebellion is concerned, right? She doesn't know who these people are. She just knows she's fighting for a better tomorrow, or she thinks she's, that's what she thinks she's doing. And so the way that those two characters were written and will continue to be written, because again, we get season two, is just, it's so remarkably well done in the way that it paints the early days of the rebellion for ordinary people, right? And we've talked about it ad nauseum in our Andor discussions about how the rebellion is really the extraordinary actions of ordinary people. And that is what Star Wars is. And so kind of pivoting to Cass and getting, I mean, we get him in Rogue One, and he is very much of the Luthen mind, right? Like, do whatever it takes to get, what you need done. And I think we're going to kind of see that in the second season of Andor, is him kind of adopting Luthen's tactics, right? And that sort of thing. And the irony of it all is that his droid K2 is an Imperial droid, right? And using the tools of my enemies to defeat them, right? It is such a Luthen thing to do that Cass is a Luthen protege. And so we're going to get that in season 2. And we kind of start to see that towards the end of season 1. And so to get kind of that buy-in, and why, again, the family, the familial nature of Star Wars, and that the lone wolf doesn't last very long in Star Wars, right? And you need a support structure. And Cass lost that when he lost Marva, and to some extent Bix and his friends, right? Well, he lost his dad, his adoptive father, and his adoptive mother. And understanding what she was fighting for and having that finally click for him, and then him kind of buy in at the end of season 1, but know where he's going to end up in Rogue One, right? That journey, both now and coming up, like, I have no doubt that the cast is going to continue to expand or evolve as the character, as his character grows into Rogue One Cassian. And I don't know that clicked for me until just now talking about that he is going to be Luthen's protege. Like, I didn't, just kind of stream of consciousness there. But yeah, so it's hard to pick one of them because they're all three so intricate to the show and the overall story. So yeah, perhaps it's not a surprise that I pick somebody from Andor just because of how much I love the show.
It's a little bit of a surprise, because I mean, I know you love Kenobi. I know you love other characters, so it's just a little surprised, but I know you love the show too. So I'm surprised you picked your favorite. Surprised you didn't just go that route for fun.
For who?
My favorite's actually Grogu.
Oh, Grogu.
The listeners would have been, surprised.
Oh my God. That would be hypocrisy, though, John. And I try not to be a hypocrite on this show. I point out the things that I don't. Well, even to the Grogu point, right? I see him as an intricate character. Just he doesn't need to be in my Boba Fett show. That's really my only. That was really my only gripe.
Not wrong.
But I mean, it's going to be.
It's clear. We needed Mando 2.5 so we could get to 3.
Yeah, and to be fair to the little green man, there's from the season 3 trailer, right? I think we're going to get an expansion of not only his backstory but his future as well. And so I was checking out Wikipedia today for various reasons, for research purposes, and noted that season 4 of Mando is already in pre-production. So I know we talked about it last episode or a couple episodes ago, about whether season 4 was in the works, and it is. So having it be Grogu focused is definitely possible.
It makes sense. And Grogu carries a hefty dollar with him. So you put your money where it needs to be, for good reason. So when you're a company that's like Disney. So yeah, I mean, that's awesome though. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that your Andor cast ensemble is excellent. I think he's the lead of that, so you can't go away from him. I am surprised you didn't go with Luthen. I think that's surprising to me that you didn't pick Luthen because he is the mastermind currently in the show. I know it's Cassian's show, but it's Luthen was the mastermind this season. So I think from my standpoint and just knowing you, you like to move the pieces around. You like to be that person. So it's not picking the guy that's doing it is interesting to me. But
Well,
awesome.
I couldn't pick just one of them because, well, one, I'm terrible at like making that I told you before we started recording that I didn't know who I was going to pick
Yeah, you
because
had a whole list.
I've got post-it notes here that I've got, like I had Mando, Kenobi, Vader, and then the cast of Andor as my like kind of a
Like I said, like
breakdown.
immediately when you we decided on this topic, I'm like, I know who my worst one is right now. I already know. I know immediately, and it wasn't Boba. Like honorable mention, but it wasn't Boba. And then I did have to think about my favorite one. I was truly between the three of that I had. Because I almost went with Vader. Very very close to Vader, and yeah, but I just had to go Maul. His story is just so compelling, and he wanted to overthrow the Emperor before it was the Emperor. You know, like he had figured out the plan and knew it was not the way it needed to go because it would end poorly for everyone. So it was, yeah, I was just very interesting storyline that he had, and then him entwining with Ahsoka multiple times in the Disney shows that were put out, and then meeting his demise. Like,
Yeah,
good stuff.
you get the completion of his arc, and it's and it was well done. So
It didn't let you down, yeah, that's for sure.
now, just a fun question before we wrap up this episode. Of the shows coming out going forward, do you envision us getting or finding a character that would supplant? Like, do you see Ahsoka getting to a point where she could supplant Maul as your favorite? Is Maul just locked in for forever and always?
I don't know if we're gonna be able to get animation to live action Ahsoka at the same point. Like, I we met Ahsoka animated, obviously, and it was the opposite for Maul. So we've seen Ahsoka do a lot of stuff that she'll never be able to do live action.
True.
You know, does that make sense?
Yep.
And unless something crazy happens in her live action show, which it could happen, I don't know if it'll get there or not. As far as character development, maybe, but as far as what she has personally done in animation, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to grow her past that. As far as like the lightsaber duel, for instance, so you brought it up, like Maul versus her in season 7 was a fantastic lightsaber duel. We won't get a duel like that in live action. It's just physically not possible. Not the actor's fault, not the writer's fault. Like we're not getting that duel again. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if some other stuff happens in her story, it might tilt the scales. But you know, Ahsoka grew up in the first seasons of Clone Wars before she was introduced as a Disney in Clone Wars, and then she had Rebels, but she wasn't the main focus of Rebels until their last season when she was really helping out. So,
For sure.
what character is there for you in the new shows coming up that could still, you know, take over your favorites?
Well, the thing about it is,
Boba could still top Finn for the worst for me.
you think? Wait, how? If they brought him back for a new show?
If if he continues down the path he's on, it might get worse.
Yeah, I'm hoping that part of me is really hoping that we get something from Acolyte that, you know, hits hard, like is like a home run, because I want to know more about kind of the earlier days of the new Sith Order, and the Jedi who turn that way, basically. And so, yeah, that's the show that I'm most looking forward to is Acolyte. I'm excited for Ahsoka, but Acolyte's the new show that I'm looking forward to most, and I'm hoping that we get some characters there that would allow for multiple seasons, because that's one that they could, depending on how it's written, they could do multiple seasons of and have it be really good. And so that's kind of where I'm hoping, if there's somebody who's going to supplant anybody from Andor, granted they have season 2, and so that may just lock it down. But if not, I'm hoping it comes from Acolyte.
I think the other stuff they're doing right now, if I was going to get like Darth Maul like replaced as my favorite character they've done, there's always more for other characters, so if they fill in some of the blanks, and I'm incredibly happy with how they did that, Maul might fall the wayside. I mean, I have his complete story basically already. I mean, a lot has been filled in for him. So if I get another character that we haven't maybe seen either animation, or they go back to revisit some storylines in live action that we just didn't know we were going to get, it might replace him. So, and I'm excited for that, and stuff like the Mando. Like, Mando still has a long story to go. He can very easily become the favorite character for a lot of people. He currently is the favorite character for a lot of people, especially on Disney Plus specifically. So there's still a lot we don't know about him, his background. I mean, we know most of his background at this point, but there's still years we don't know about, and we don't know what's going to happen next for him. So
Right, exactly.
Yeah. A lot of fun stuff coming. I look forward to next Star Wars podcast day. Maybe our views have changed.
We look forward to these things with great interest.
Maybe that's the annual show we have. Like, who do we hate in Disney Star Wars this year?
Does it change? You know what? If we get enough content to where we could legitimately have a discussion like that every year, I think we're doing pretty well from a fan base. Like,
I won't be upset.
So
I won't be upset. And
it's amazing to think, just kind of wrapping things up now with this being the Star Wars Podcast Day episode, how far, commentary has gone, come. The number of Star Wars shows out there now is tremendous, with so much great commentary across multiple niches, and we feel very fortunate to just be the drop in a drop in the larger pool of Star Wars fans who put their voice to recording. And we are very honored to be able to partake in this year's festivities.
Yeah, and as always, we appreciate all of you listeners out there listening to us, liking, subscribing, all that stuff. It's funny because you guys don't know this, but I mean, we celebrate it daily. Like, when we get new subscribers, like, we are all about it. Like, we're super excited to have those people join our journey. We've came a long way in just the last year. I mean, even up to a couple months ago, we started the YouTube channel, and we've been rocking and rolling on that. And Obi-Sean, you've done a great job on that stuff. And we look forward to growing our content in the future. I mean, more to come, and we're very excited. And hopefully this time next year we have more to celebrate. So
for sure. So with that, we're going to bring the show to a close. Short and sweet. We'll put the social channels in the show notes. If you do enjoy the content, please consider sharing it and following the cast. We really do appreciate it. But for that, we're gonna make our jump to hyperspace. So for Jedi John, I'm Obi-Sean, and until next time,
may the Force be with you.
Force.